creamy moon, a dreamy tune, the night so grand in Maryland, a gentle sigh, a hushed reply, love's in command in Maryland.
To me, when I think of Pixie Williams, she's our first female, Māori kahungunu pop star.
Her pitch and her timing is really amazing. It sounds as that old charm and aesthetic. And this is someone who wasn't formally taught.
Te wā tuatahi I rongo a hau mo te reo o Pixie Williams. Tēnei rangatira kaiwaiata, tēnei māre kura, no roto mai o Ngāti Kahungunu.
A silver string, ferns evergreen, will drift and dream through fairyland. The stream flows on, the song goes on and on through Maryland.
Well, Pixie grew up in Mohaka, which is in Northern Hawke's Bay. That's where music was just so popular. There was no other entertainment.
The whole area used to come to our home, and we had a piano room, and the whole family used to gather there on a Sunday and have a sing-along. Mostly the elders were singing, and us kids used to sit around at their feet, and listen to all the music that was going on. And it sort of went from there.
Pixie had a cousin, George Lewis, who was a very good pianist, and you thought, how on earth did he learn to play the piano as well as he did? And he told the story once that there was an old lady there, an old queer, that had a piano, and she wouldn't let anyone play it, especially not young kids. And so Pixie and George used to sneak in whenever she went down to the shop, and he'd play away on the piano, and he always had Pixie as a lookout. And as soon as they saw the old lady walking back down, they'd close the piano up and disappear out the back door. But that's how George became a very good pianist, and Pixie developed that love of music.
I think Mum's talent for music really came from the roots, which is from Pahuwera Hapu of the Ngāti Kahungunu iwi, where she was brought up around music and she couldn't help but learn from everybody around her.
When you come from a place like this, Mohaka, music was a big thing, eh? And Pixie used to live out here. A lot of us could hit a drum and thing, but she had something different, eh?
For Ngāti Kahungunu and our association with music, it's inherent in us. It's in our DNA and it's in our whakapapa, it's in our way of being. It's something that we inherit from our Māori gods. There's a karakia that says that our gods sang the world into existence. They sang the world from the void and the nothingness into the world of light. So this concept of musicality for us is something that we've always had.
In the old days, the tribes from other parts of the country, they used to raid this area specifically because of our women were good singers. And also a lot of the compositions from a lot of other tribes, a lot of them started in this area here, like Pixie's one of her tipono. Pani Lemuel composed a lot of songs too, which we still sing today. So, I mean, it must be in the blood.
It didn't take long for our people to grasp the concept of Western instrumentation and music on hearing it. Prior to that, we had melody, we had song, we had rhythm, and we had vibration that mimicked the environment around us, the birds, the waves, the wind, the elements.
Te pū o papatuanuku ki te taiao. E rere ana te mita o papa. Ko te hā o papatuanuku, ai ko te hā o te tako o te waiwai a ko tahi, rua, toru, whā.
Oh, you fascinating married girl, I love to watch your purpose twirl, the twist and rhythm of those super wrists as you sway while ukuleles play.
I was brought up by my grandparents, you see, and my grandmother died in 1941. Then I moved from there to our uncle's home, which was in Ropinga, and he had 5 girls, and they were all singers. So we used to make a choir. We used to sing at the dances at home, you know. And Night and Day was one of the songs. We used to sing, milking cows, mind you.
So you sang while you were milking the cow?
Yes, sang while we were milking the cows.
In every Māori village across the entirety of Ngāti Kahungunu, there was a band of some sort. So very much as you were expected to pick up a tea towel in the kitchen and do the dishes, pick up a spade in the field and turn the soil, in the evening you would pick up an instrument and make music into the night.
And at the dances, what sort of musical accompaniment would you normally have there?
Well, they had piano and guitar mostly, and some of the guys later on, you know, started going on the sax. Everybody just seemed to get their notes right, you know, none of us read music.
It was almost as if they're singing through the instrument rather than this Western regimented technique of learning to play. And it was done as whānau, and it was an expectation, and it was organic and natural.
Remember, Bill Eds used to have a tea chest to play the bass. And wherever he used to go, he used to carry this tea chest.
Wherever we went, everybody whistled. You know, it's just something that came out. It was musical.
I don't know what it was about this area, you see, with these cold shores. And Bunny and Jock Turapa, you see, they all everybody seemed to be musicians.
I think it was natural, eh? Yeah. If you weren't milking cows, you were playing the piano.
Music was a form of relaxation, and especially after those depression years, like, you know, they were tough years, and that was a way of people could relax and get together and all moan and grizzle together about being broke.
When I was 17, I came to Wellington to work. It was wartime.
How did you feel about moving from the country to Wellington?
I miss the family. You know, it's like being plucked out of your environment and going to something different. It was just a different atmosphere from home.
Homesick?
Yes, yes.
Pixie lived in what was called the Orient Hostel, which is right at the end of Oriental Bay, and was a hostel for single ladies, I presume was started in the Second World War.
We had a lovely group of girls. We used to all gather there, you know, on a Sunday and have a sing-along. Everybody joined in.
Did the singing at the hostel lead to anything more?
No, I never thought about recording or anything like that.
Windy city, nestling smugly in the hill. I shall love you forever and until.
You know, didn't hear her singing around here, you know, but I suppose with all the music, you know, she probably was in the background. Because what I can gather, she was not a singer. She was passionate about playing the hockey.
Pixie was a very pleasant girl, and she was still very much a country girl. She wasn't a city person at all, really.
I shall love you till the sun no longer rises.
It was a surprise to me just how prominent Ngāti Kahungunu musicians have been right through New Zealand's popular music history. From Mohaka, Walter Smith, you know, Parari Tomoana, there's the Moteo Jazz Band, all Maori musicians in the 1930s. Later on in the 50s, you've got Johnny Cooper. And in the middle there is Ruru Karaitiana writing this big hit, Blue Smoke.
The way I understand it with respect to Blue Smoke, the song itself, was that they found the trip on the Aquitania pretty boring, and a lot of it was downtime, lounging around on the deck and just waiting for something to happen. And on this particular occasion, Dad looked up at the funnels of the Aquitania and noticed that the smoke was going directly behind them. So the Aquitania was sailing through the Pacific and the smoke was heading back home. And the other part of that was he was a 17-year-old boy who had never been off the par before, and quite simply he was missing his mother. So the song was really about a 17-year-old boy missing his mum. His world was probably Hawke's Bay, Wairarapa, Manawatu, no bigger than that. So they were taken out of that environment, find themselves in Europe fighting a war, a big war. The reality for them at Monte Cassino, they were trapped in the rail yards under the guns, and we lost a significant number of our family there. There were whole lines of family members that died at Monte Cassino, and that was one of the significant points for Dad in terms of his dislike of the whole war. One of my uncles who was telling me about this, he said that their greatest fear when they came home was having to explain to their aunties why they weren't bringing the kids back home with them.
Well, Ngāti Porou would have had one of the highest rates of loss per head of population. One particular family, the Tūmararu whānau, they lost 3 brothers. And the 4th one was going to sign up, and the government said, no, your family's contributed enough.
And the Maori Battalion was organised in family, whānau groupings, so when you have people dying alongside them, they were your family.
We sang that Blue Smoke through the war. I'm not sure just when it started, but it was a very popular wartime song because of its sentiments, I think.
They recorded it quite some time after returning, and we would all freely admit that Dad came back damaged. He was alcohol dependent, and the only real light in his life was his music.
Senorita, mia, mia, senorita, I love you, I do.
I think that initially somebody had said to Ruru about this girl from Hawke's Bay, and they didn't say who she was or anything along those lines.
He was told about this Pixie Williams, but I think he got a bit confused because he started pursuing me and I didn't realise that he thought I was Pixie until she got a bit cross with this Maori fellow always following us around if we ever went outside the hostel, and she growled at him, and that was when he discovered that she was the Pixie Williams he was after.
I was the assistant, so I would take one of the company cars and go and pick Pixie up. On one occasion, she wasn't there. She'd gone to hockey, so I had to go and find her. She was in her hockey gear. Oh, I'm sorry, John. I said, oh, it's all right, Pixie. She refused, I think, at least once or twice, but they insisted, or Ruru insisted.
I said, tell him to get somebody else, you know. He said, you're going to sing that song for me. I said, okay. I said, I hate nagging.
Ruru Karaitiana was looking for the appropriate voice that would, I don't know, bring aroha, bring wairua with it, you know, and she was just the appropriate person to sing that song.
I love you, I do.
You've got a local record company wants to start up. They need a song for their first recording, and you've got this song that's already a hit, but no one can play it. New Zealand records didn't exist. The Hawaiian style was really popular here in New Zealand. Ruru looked around town, and Jim was the prominent rhythm guitarist and lap steel guitar player in Wellington.
Jim Carter added an element, I think, what Dad was looking for. He always acknowledged that that was the missing element, and it certainly did add something to it.
I had a friend, and his father bought him a steel guitar. Just sort of grabbed me the different music, so I wanted to learn to play. It's always a bit nerve-wracking when they put on the old red light and you've got to start playing. It's everybody's sort of tensed up. They're used to sitting on a stage with people looking at them and they could chat to one another. You have to keep completely out of all that stuff. You've got to be dead quiet and wait for the signal from Standellis, from outside, to go. So that was the first hard bit to get over, I think, for everybody. And I was the same because I'm waiting on the cutting lathe. Jim was a professional musician and so were the others with him, but Pixie was not. She was distinctly an amateur singer, and that was, I think, the beauty of what was chosen, that her naivety came out clearly in the record, made it so much more interesting.
Yes.
But she had some struggles.
I thought, oh my God, I said, I hope I'll be able to do this thing, you know, and I hope I'll be able to do it right and so forth. Just a microphone standing in the centre. And I thought, oh my God.
So how many times do you remember singing it until someone said, yes, that's the one we'll use?
It took about a week or more. But as we got further into it, and I thought, oh, well, I said, perhaps it's going to turn out fine, you know.
Blue smoke goes drifting by into the deep blue sky. When I think of home, I sadly sigh. Oh, I can see you there with loving tears in your eyes.
For the first time, gramophone records for sale to the public are being made entirely in New Zealand. The first is the Ruru Karaitiana Quintet playing the conductor's own composition, Blue Smoke.
So Mum ended up being the voice on Blue Smoke, Tanza #1, released on the 26th of June 1949. It was an instant hit with the local record buying public.
We lived in Fielding, but you had to go to Palmerston North to get it because Tanza records were sold at what was called the Columbus Radio Centre. And even although it was 70 years ago now, I still remember that day, and it seemed to me to be something that was new and exciting because it really was the beginning of the New Zealand pop music industry. Before Blue Smoke, there was nothing.
The dominant force in New Zealand recording was HMV, his master's voice, the English company. They had the license for 80% of the world's record releases. They didn't want to record New Zealand music. They didn't think people would want to buy it. Blue Smoke proved that idea wrong. But then once Tanza got off the ground, they got in the way. They bullied record retailers to not stock New Zealand records by Tanza in Stebbing.
HMV, they were monopolists, no question. Stebbing stopped making records. It was too tough.
There was a competition to get the first pressing plant off the ground, and the Radio Corp people got wind of HMV starting their pressing plant in Kilburnie, and they said, well, we better get cracking. So one of the Tanza fellows went over to Sydney and bought second-hand presses.
The actual recording, the cutting the record, might appear to be the most complex, but it wasn't really. The more complex parts of the process were the converting that acetate into a stamper to go into the press, supplying the presses and the heat required with a boiler and the pressure required from a large hydraulic accumulator in the ground floor, having people who would be prepared to work with a hot steam table on their left and this press that they had to pull down and close. And those people worked quite hard, but we beat the bastards. We were the first company in New Zealand to actually manufacture, record, process and sell a New Zealand record. Nobody had done that ever before, and HMV were beaten hands down.
50,000 records in 6 weeks it hit the top. She really surprised me, you know, when that song came out.
I was doing a bit of work on 2ZB in Wellington, and Pixie Williams' recording cropped up on that. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. It was a unique South Sea Māori style. The voice was rich and full, diction lovely, you know, and a lot better than most of, in my opinion anyway, than most of the English pop stars of the time.
Like, I knew who Pixie was, and of course I've heard of Ruru Karaitiana, who's of course legendary. I didn't really know the other songs in the catalogue. It was like, whoa, there's a real depth going on here.
I wish it could be just you and me, oh, when did it shade?
Ki haia hau e mōhio, heaha etahi atu o ngā waiata, Pikiteora Williams, a Pixie. Nā te mea, kaori whakanuihia mō mātou nā kaiwaiata Māori, e hikoi ana i te huarahi nei, kāri i whakarewa hia e rā kōrero, no roto i ene tau tatānei, ka te hinau ka rongo atu, ai, nā nei waiata a Blue Smoke, o tira, a ne atu o etahi o ana waiata.
Pixie was really sought after in Wellington, which for a brief period was the heart of New Zealand's recording industry, because there weren't many singers around who could actually pull it off.
I wish it could be just you and me, oh, ain't it a shame?
So Pixie recorded nearly a dozen songs in that brief period. But the idea that you could be a popular musician and make a living was just unheard of back then.
But then that wasn't her nature. Money wasn't the object with her. I think she was just happy within herself.
We were all so keen to get on a record that money didn't even matter. Everybody was, all the musicians were excited that they could get onto a record, and we were quite happy to do it for free if necessary.
The thing that strikes me about all the three key people involved in Blue Smoke, Ruru, Pixie and Jim Carter, is just how humble they all are and how they downplay the importance of the song or the quality of their performance. You had Ruru saying, "I don't really rate it." Pixie did it reluctantly, and Jim Carter, who said, "Oh, it was Pixie's performance that was the big part of it."
Yeah, I don't think you're ever satisfied with what you're playing. But as long as you can get by and get to the end of the tune without stopping, it's something.
But he was proud of another song that he recorded with that band, Jimmy Carter's Hawaiians, Bellbird Serenade, that Pixie sang on. That was a song that Jim picked out as being more proud of his performance.
Just a chime or two, somewhere in the blue, echoed on the breeze.
Shortly after we made the record, she disappeared for quite a while then. I didn't know where she'd gone.
Jim worked in the post office. Ruru played in dance bands and was a shearer and other jobs like that. Pixie went from Wellington to Motueka, became a tobacco picker for a little while before heading to Dunedin.
I think if Pixie had gone to Auckland instead of Dunedin, I think she would have really got into it there. They were much more ahead with the top musicians in the country than they were in Dunedin. I'm sure of it.
Make a wish before it's noon, it's bound to come true. This is a wonderful day. We will spend our honeymoon where wild kauai's bloom, listening to the merry throng, chant this song the whole day long, the music of
It still distresses me so much what happened at that time. Blue Smoke was released years earlier. When I got there, I was the one that was trying to get the damn thing back on the market again and couldn't. And it took a lot of investigation technically before they found that we weren't getting good stampers because we had used Wellington water, and the water for some reason was affecting the masters. That I never had dealings with Pixie, but I did have with Ruru Karaitiana. And Ruru would come in, you say, "You've got any money? Come in yet." And I had to say, "No, I can't get it reissued at the moment." A frustrating situation. I mean, I felt for Ruru, but there's nothing I could do.
I know he did earn reasonably large amounts of money at different times in his career, but never really knew about it. And it tended to coincide with the worst of his drinking period as well. So I suspect that most of it dissipated pretty quickly.
First time I met Pixie had to be about 1970. We went down to Dunedin. Now, at that stage, Pixie was not in the limelight at all. She just didn't feature. She'd married Paddy Costello.
Paddy, an Irishman. He He liked to drink. He's a bit of a hard man. I guess they all were back then. Bit of a workaholic as well. You know, he had his own business. Back then, that generation, they worked for it, you know. And yeah, certainly Paddy and Pix did that as well.
The clock chimed at midnight, the old year was through. They met quite by chance in the square.
Mum was singing in a bar in town, and she says these rowdy bunch of workers were in there, and yeah, it turned out to be one of them was Paddy, and yeah, they hooked up, and 2 weeks later they got married.
As I passed them by.
Mum had told the story that she'd been offered a recording contract in Canada, and she was quite prepared to go, and she said to the record company that, you know, they would have to pay for Paddy's boat fare as well, and they just said no, that, you know, we want you, but he can come, but he'll have to find his own way. So they just said no, just turned it down flatly. Yeah. Pixie, she'd walk over coals for the old man.
Any challenges were always faced by Dad. Dad took it on his own shoulders to provide for the family. So with the amount of heavy work that he was doing, his back just was deteriorating.
Paddy kind of despised the fact that she'd never got that recognition, you know, the royalties type thing. That always played on his mind for, you know, right throughout his whole life, you know.
When we lived in Minto Street in Anderson's Bay, Dad would be drunk and Mum would have had a few, and they'd be arguing because somebody had said, can Mum get up and sing a song? And he'd turn around and say, no, she's not singing a song, and you know, Dad would end up getting in a fight. And a couple of times I do remember Mum coming home with a guitar and blood on the guitar.
No one spoke about Mum being Pixie Williams. There was no discussion about her time recording in Wellington. I'd only heard Blue Smoke a couple of times, but when I heard Ain't It a Shame, it just blew me away because I loved following Billie Holiday and all of the older stars. Here we were on the bones of our, you know, not a lot of money, not a lot of nice things in our lives, and then here's this beautiful voice, and it's Mum. It's sort of like when you wish that you woke up and you're a princess.
You could tell that she was musically inclined, you know, just the way she did it, moved around the house singing and stuff like that. But, you know, she had a guitar at home, she had a piano accordion, that kind of thing, and it was a bit of a party house, you know. Mum and Dad have their friends up from around the neighbourhood, and yeah, crack the keg, away they go, you know, and all the kids would be there, we'd run around the backyard.
There was 4 children, myself, David, I was adopted, Jared, Amelia, and then Maria, who was also adopted.
I'm sorry, I must say goodbye.
Yeah, I grew up with basically a twin, and unfortunately though she was very unwell. She had extreme asthma, bronchitis.
We got a cheap rent for looking after a dilapidated house, which was very damp. It didn't contribute to anybody's good health.
So Maria was sick a lot. Yeah, it was interesting times just seeing what treatment she didn't get versus other kids of the time, and she...
I'm sorry, I must say
shouldn't have died.
But your heart must know
it was a disgrace.
It's just because I love you so.
And Mum and Dad should not have had to face losing their own.
Yeah, Paddy became quite withdrawn over it, and I guess Pixie had to pick up the pieces and keep the family together in that respect, yeah.
There were so many things put in our way, or things not available to us, not only because of our financial situation, but also because of our racial situation.
But your heart must know why.
I think that's why Dad was always so angry and bitter about people wanting to know Pixie Williams but Pixie Costello. They'd be quite happy to just walk there on the other side of the road, because once Dad lost money, a lot of the friends went as well. I remember Mum saying once, if people don't want to know me as Pixie Costello, they sure as hell aren't going to get to know me as Pixie Williams.
That I must go.
The songwriting collection agency, APRA, asked their members to vote for the most important songs of the last 75 years. There was Blue Smoke. It was like this anomaly, the only early New Zealand pop song. Well, once they released the compilation album of that vote, and it became this big hit called Nature's Best, that was in 100,000 homes. So by about 2001, 2002, Blue Smoke had a whole new life again.
With Pixie's record being on that, Nature's Best, and then there was this other recognition started popping up, you know. She was quite happy not to be in the limelight at that stage. She'd go, oh, that song.
Kāre tonu pirangi, ki te mahi te waiata nei. Whakamā.
Yeah, I can't describe what Mum was like about her own career. It was like somebody had cut a picture out of a magazine and thrown it in the bin. She didn't talk about it. You know, like returned servicemen, they don't want to talk about that period. It's usually about stuff that's not good. But this stuff is good. George Borroman sat and had a chat with Pix in the mid-70s, thought it was really awful that Mum had never been given any of her music when she recorded. So George decided, I'm going to start collecting her records. He didn't tell us.
I went around all the junk shops and I found 2 or 3 different records of Pixie. And I got all excited. And that's what started me off with New Zealand 78. Took a long, long time to get that final copy of Saddle Hill.
We were really gobsmacked when George turned up with 13 of Mum's songs, which he collected over 30 years.
We were in shock that she had recorded so many songs, and even she had forgotten.
In 2011, I received a call from Amelia's friend Tim, and it was a great phone call. He asked me to have a look at this album's worth of music from Pixie Williams and to see if they could be restored from the original 78 shellac records and released as a digital CD.
The reality was, well, how do you remaster an album, you know?
Scared the pants off me, if I'm honest. I've been doing this for decades. I've worked with over 1,000 artists, but this one job just carries such weight. In the last few decades, the ability to restore music via the computer software has developed out of this world, and we can clear up the noise and add in the tonal aspects and really separate amazing detail.
They got to the point when the tracks were being remastered that we could hear instrumentation and that we didn't even know was on some of the tracks, like double bass, for example. It felt like we were taking on a responsibility to ensure that the legacy of these great musicians playing these great songs was, you know, preserved, protected, you know, and actually available for people to enjoy. I mean, ultimately that's what it comes down to, isn't it, you know? It comes down to enjoying some good tunes, you know?
When the remastered album was launched, John Shears contacted me. He said when he heard Blue Smoke for the first time off the CD, he burst into tears. It was only through the efforts of the remastering and unpicking that sound and what Mike and Tim pioneered in that process that he just closed his eyes and he was back in the studio and he expected to open them to see Pix in the corner. job done.
Ka oho te wairua, ka matara te tinana, he aroha ki te aroha, ka kā te rama, ti he Māori ora.
I wish it could be just you and me. Oh, ain't it a shame? I wish you could see deep into my heart and please believe what you see.
When Mike got in touch and said, look, I'm doing this Pixie Williams project and we want to revisit these songs as an album, would you be interested in producing it? I was just pretty floored actually. I was aware of the fact that I wanted to stay respectful to the composers and to the artists of the time. I thought that was the key thing. The more I listened to the songs, the more I listened to Pixie and listened to the music, the songs actually told me where we should go.
Tuatahi me kia hau, he tino honore, he honore tēnei moku. Ki te hara mai, ki te tuku I tōku reo, ki runga I tētahi o ngā waiata o te kaitito nea Ruru Karaitiana, miharo tērā kia hau, tuarua o tira ki te nā te mea he kai waiata hau, ki te hoatu I tōku reo, ki te whakanui I te kai waiata, he wahine, he Māori, ki te whakanui I tērā āhuatana, I ēnei wā, I roto I tēnei ao huri I nāia tonu nei.
My role on this project is trying to match a vocalist to one of the tunes, because Pixie herself was just plucked out of obscurity. We were going to trial out some fresh young faces that no one's heard yet.
Just a chime or two, somewhere in the blue, echoed on the breeze. Listen if you please, I can hear a bellbird serenade.
You've heard all the music before, we've heard like Blue Smoke before, and then to put the name and sort of the personality to the face was the first time we were listening through the album and we got to the comment section at the end. So Pixie just sort of has something to say about music, and it was the first time we'd sort of put the person to the song, and
we all broke
down.
Had
a little cry in the rehearsal.
Yeah,
it was it's real awesome to be a part of Pixie's legacy now.
Saddle Hill, I love you till I die. Only God in heaven knows why. My Saddle Hill, my Saddle Hill.
It's all feeling awesome. I think it just comes down to in yourself knowing, oh, that was that felt, that had the sort of magic.
I mean, to me, when I think of Pixie Williams, she would have been a pop star of her time and of her era. You know, Blue Smoke was such a big hit, so it's so cool to be able to revisit her songs and to redo them again and feel some of her magic and her wairua.
He mahina, he rangi moe moe a, he miharo ngā pō, I whenua Māori.
You know, just having the opportunity to record it in Te Reo Māori now, I mean, if you think back, I guess Pixie probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that in the 1940s. I mean, were they making Reo Māori pop songs? I don't think so. So, yeah, this is really cool.
Rere tonu awa, Lere tonu poro, mohake tonu, I whenua Māori.
Wonderful.
Shall we come through?
I reckon come through, and we've got 4 takes, but maybe the first take has to kind of write a vibe to it. Let's go.
Growing up, she wasn't famous, so finding out that there is Blue Smoke was quite cool as a teenager. And then in my adult life, when they did the remaster, to find out that there's a whole album worth of stuff, that was ridiculous. Like, my Nana was this famous lady that nobody knew. Being here now is just a whole new level.
So interesting to see the process that they would go through and the lengths that they would go through to create a record back in the day, 70 years ago, compared to what we do today. And we've got the luxury today of editing things so easily. We can go into the control room after we've finished a take and go, oh yeah, that was a good take. Let's go with that, that's got the vibe. But back then they didn't have that luxury.
Those people working 70 years ago were at the forefront, I guess, of technology. You know, they had to make it work. They were breaking new ground about how things were recorded, how things were captured. So excited to have John Shears come down and visit these studios. He was the assistant engineer on the recording of Blue Smoke, and so looking forward to showing him around and see the look on his face when he walks into the studios and hears the sound.
I've thought about Blue Smoke many occasions over the years, and it is 70 years, let's face it, it's a long time. But now it doesn't seem that long ago. We were conscious of the fact that we were trying to make a good job of making the first record ever made in New Zealand. It's quite exciting to realise that we made history.
Doing this project, doing the remastering, capturing this story is because I'm proud of her and she deserved more in life. But that's what life is, and you know, our families from war times, they just got on with it and made the best of it. I just don't want all this lost.
I just love that, the second generation celebrating their parents' legacy. There are these people that have contributed so much, and the baton gets passed down from them to their children, to their grandchildren, to new musicians all the time, that it's all connected through the generations.
We've still got boys going to war, we've still got boys not coming back, we've still got families affected. That's why the song still has legs today and is now, as I see it, New Zealand's unofficial Anzac Day anthem.
So it was with great pleasure that I have the honour of inducting these 3 pioneers of New Zealand recording, the Blue Smoke whānau, into the New Zealand Music Hall of Fame.
I'm delighted that Pixie is still remembered, because it's an era that's gone, isn't it, that sort of music? She would have been very embarrassed at the time, but I think she secretly would have loved it.
Pleased for Dad for the recognition, pleased for Pixie, and in many ways really pleased for Jim, because, you know, most of these people have gone and departed without any recognition at all.
I think Pixie deserves to get something like that. It's really, really something for her.
Even today, you know, just to mention her name, you know, and I can visualise her face. It brings back memories for me anyway, a lot of memories.
Her story is our story, and it's up to us now to make sure that our future generations know that same story.
Music always
has some meaning, doesn't it? You know, I always feel when you have music in your heart, it stays with you. Music will always live on.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.